the last several modules tended to be a little price-centric in terms of price competition, price discrimination, all kinds of different sort of pricing aspects, even bundling, tying, bringing together different products and how you price those. In this module, we're going to shift focus a little bit. It's still going to be competition. If you can't tell by now, the whole focus of the class is sort of how firms compete under different competitive environments, which is why we start off with measuring competition through concentration ratios, Herfindahl indices, those sorts of things. So here we want to talk about product differentiation, about designing products to maybe tailored to different customers, different clientele, why companies do this, how prevalent it is, those sorts of things. So first, I've got a little bit of maybe a test for you here on a few slides. So on this slide, I've got a whole bunch of types of margarine, butter type products, and want you to think through which ones the company Unilever makes. Okay, so we've got Imperial, Promise, Country Crock, Sheds, Corona, Miss Filberts, I Can't Believe It's Not Butter. Okay, so we got a whole bunch of them. So just hold on to that for a second, but just think. I don't expect anyone to actually know this off the top of their head, but just which ones does Unilever make? Went too far. We then get soap, and which ones does Procter & Gamble make? So Safeguard, Zest, Ivory, Camay. We've got coffee and Philip Morris, and so we got Uban, Maxim, Sanka, Maxwell House. Bottled water and Nestle, Perrier, Arrowhead, Poland Springs, Calistoga, Vittel, Contrex. Shampoo, Procter & Gamble, Pantene, Head & Shoulders, Pert, Herbal Essence, Aussie, Infusium 23. Okay, so a whole bunch of different goods and then asking you which company makes which. Okay, the moral of the story is that one company the company in question actually makes all of those different brands. So Unilever made all of those types of butter. Procter & Gamble made all of the shampoos. Nestle made all of the waters. Now, notice if you think about advertising, they don't tend to advertise like Head & Shoulders by Procter & Gamble or, such and such a butter by Unilever. Like the company's name is left out of it. They treat them as such distinct, independent products that they market them almost as their own company. They don't really worry about sort of throwing the company in there, which is why I wouldn't expect you guys to immediately know, oh, that company makes all of these or makes these ones. It's a really hard question because they don't advertise it as the companies making these. They really treat them as distinct brands and they focus on marketing campaigns and everything, treating them separately. And so we want to talk about why they would do that, what they're hoping to accomplish, and what they actually do with that. Before we get there, though, I want to sort of continue on this line, and I want to talk about credit cards. So if you remember back to the first module, we talked about measuring concentration. And we talked about Herfindahl indices, concentration ratios, those sorts of things. So think about if we applied those to the credit card industry. Okay, so there are over 4,000 credit card issuers. So we're not talking Visa, MasterCard, American Express. We're talking, banks, credit unions, some employee associations, alumni associations, all these different groups. There's over 4,000 different companies that put out their own credit cards. Okay. There are, depending on the number, about 75 million in the U.S. credit card holders. The 10 largest credit card companies hold a combined 20% market share. There's no sign of a cartel or collusion between these companies. Yet, if I ask you sort of in your gut, is this a highly competitive market? Okay, because all of these bullet points here tend to point to intense competition. We get tons of firms, tons of options, lots of buyers, not a ton of market share for any one credit card company. Yet, if I ask you, is it perfectly competitive? Is profit zero? Is it, highly, highly competitive? Your gut's probably going to say no. These companies are charging really high interest rates, like 15 to 20% in a lot of cases. They tend to be very profitable, or at least this line of their business tends to be very profitable. There's nothing about this that screams this is a very highly competitive industry. So what's going on? Well, even though there's so many different credit cards out there, they're not all equal. Each one has its own attributes. So some offer airline miles, some offer cashback, some offer points that there's some that you can get points to pay off your mortgage type of thing. So there's all kinds of different amenities or characteristics of these, so that even though there's a ton of them, and even though our market analysis is going to tend to say it looks very competitive, in reality, any credit card might only be competing with another handful of cards that do the same things that it does. So product differentiation allows the companies to enter markets or to be within markets that appear on the surface to be very competitive, but yet the environment in which they're competing is much narrower, allowing them market power and allowing them profitability. We can break product differentiation up into two different types. So there's horizontal product differentiation, and then there's vertical product differentiation. Horizontal, you can think of as differences in tastes and preferences between consumers. So one consumer prefers, let's say, a Samsung TV, and another prefers a Sony TV. It's not that one is clearly better. Now, they might think that, but it's more of an opinion-based thing. So they're competing and people's preferences differ. So Coke versus Pepsi, Ford versus Toyota. I got my graduate degree at the University of Oregon, so Ducks versus Huskies. Now, I would argue that that's actually a vertical, and everyone knows the Ducks are better. But other people have told me that they can disagree, and that some people, for whatever reason, can actually like the Huskies. So horizontal is when there's different tastes or preferences, and everyone sort of has their own opinion. Vertical differentiation is when all customers prefer one thing over another. So, for example, all would agree that a more fuel efficient car is preferable to a less fuel efficient car, all else equal. So we're not saying one's faster or safer or any of those things. Just if one's more fuel efficient than the other and they are absolutely identical in every other aspect, we would all agree that the one that's more fuel efficient is a better car. So vertical is less opinion based, and it's more of like a hierarchy of this good has preferable characteristics to some other good. So we can place them and we can sort of rank order them, and everyone agrees. We're taking sort of opinion out of it. So those are the two different types of product differentiation. But in reality, most everything is a mix of both of them. So let's stick with cars, for example. We can have two different cars, and when we look at them, we can have vertical differentiation. So let's think of some components of the car. So one has cloth, the other has leather. One has a premium sound system, the other has a basic sound system. One has a sunroof, the other has no sunroof. One has better fuel efficiency, the other has lower fuel efficiency. So they differ in all these different aspects, and we can disagree on which car is better because of the bundles of the characteristics, but we can agree that on each characteristic which one is better. So we can maybe all agree that having a sunroof, even if you don't necessarily want a sunroof, if nothing else for resale value, having a sunroof is better than not having a sunroof. Having the premium sound is better than not having the premium sound. Now, when it comes to the entire package of do you prefer this car or that car, we can disagree. That's a horizontal decision. But in terms of the individual characteristics, that is a little bit, that's more of a vertical differentiation. Okay, so here's a very, very concrete example. If we've got car A that's got a sunroof, leather seats, and a Bose stereo, gets 18 miles per gallon. Car B has no sunroof, cloth seats, a basic stereo, and gets 28 miles per gallon. Which car would you buy? Okay, and granted, we don't have price in here. But we can probably agree sunroof's better. No sunroof. Most would prefer leather over cloth. Most would prefer Bose over basic. Most would prefer 28 miles per gallon over 18 miles per gallon. So we can have vertical elements, but when it comes to which car is better, everyone that's more of a horizontal. Everyone has their own opinion. Okay, so let's think about what firms are doing when they're designing their products and when they're doing product differentiation. So I'm going to start with sort of a strange analogy, and then we're going to bring it back to product differentiation. So I want you to think of a summer day and being along a beach. Okay, so this is the length of the beach. Now, I'm not going to draw water and trees and sand and all that. This is just the length of the beach. Okay, so here's a beach, and there's ice cream vendors, one at each extreme end of the beach. So there's a little, and I am not an artist, but you get the sense. There's a little ice cream cart here. There's a little ice cream cart here. And the question I want to ask you is, which vendor do you buy from? Okay, now let's just assume the prices are the same for now. So if you're here, my assumption is you're probably going to buy from the one that is closest to you. If you are here, you're going to buy from the one that's closest to you. Okay. Now, these vendors, they recognize this, and they recognize that what you're going to do is you're going to want to buy from whoever's closest to your location. And so the vendors are going to find it in their best interest to start moving this way. And they want to move this way because as they move, let's say this one on the left moves to here, everyone in this region is going to buy from them because they are between those customers' location and the other ice cream vendor. So they're going to have to pass the ice cream vendor on the left before getting to the ice cream vendor on the right. So they're going to get all those, plus they're going to get about halfway out to there, and they're going to capture those. So both vendors are going to start learning this, and they're going to start moving to the middle. But what they're also going to do is they're going to recognize that they could potentially set up other locations at different points. So let's say that this vendor moves here. Okay, so this vendor moves here, and they're capturing everything in this region, plus they're capturing half of that because they're all closest. So we're sticking with customers are buying from whoever's closest. Okay, my ice cream vendor on the right, they, rather than moving, they think, okay, I mean, they might move a little, but they think, well, what if I open up a second spot? And what if I open a second spot right here? Okay, if I open up a second spot right there, I'm going to get half of this, and now I'm going to capture all of this because this vendor moved here. Okay, well, this vendor that moved is then going to say, okay, well, I'm not going to stand for that. I'm going to open up a new one right here, and you can see where this process is going to lead. It's going to lead to sort of all these different vendors setting up spots at all kinds of different spots along the beach, trying to service those different clients and trying to always be the one closest to where their customer base is located. So what in the world does this have to do with product differentiation? Okay, well, think of the beach. Think of this horizontal line as service spectrum. And think about relabeling it. Let's relabel it sugar content in cereals. And the far left is no sugar added, very, very healthy cereal. And the sugar in the far right of this line is my super sugary, extra cocoa-y breakfast cereal, whatever it happens to be. Okay, well, customers vary. There's some customers that want no sugar, very healthy, lots of bran, that sort of stuff. And then on the other end, you've got, lots of kids and stuff that would like very, very sugary cereal. Well, instead of trying to find one spot to be in terms of sugar content, why not make a whole bunch of different lines of cereal that are at different points so that you can service all kinds of different customers? And so if you go back to those first slides where it was, okay, what of these butters is made by Unilever? What of these shampoos is made by Procter and Gamble? They don't care whether they as a company are making it. All they're trying to do is make products that satisfy different segments of the market, and they're trying to be located where they assume there's lots of customers. And so with product differentiation, it's really about trying to be sticking with this analogy at all these different points on the beach so that you can capture the customers that are there. And you can think of, if we're saying that they shop from the customer closest to them, they're going to buy the shampoo that it meets their needs closest. They're going to buy the butter that's closest to their needs. They're going to buy the cereal that's closest to their needs. And so the goal is not to worry about your branding your company, but branding these different products and articulating where they fit in the spectrum of whatever attribute we're talking about so that they're differentiated, and it lessens competition because these two vendors no longer are competing with the extremes. They're competing with two or three firms that are all pretty close to one another. That's really what's going on with product differentiation.